Yeah, first of all, I think this is probably by far the best Bitcoin conference I've ever attended. I've been to Bitcoin Miami 3 times. Last year we were in Bitcoin Nashville. This is probably the most efficient conference so far, business-wise.
It's big. It's big. It looks like I would expect with the United States loosening up all of the regulations and changing the attitude and establishing the Bitcoin reserve, and it's reflected in the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been a pretty big sponsor of the Bitcoin conference for a number of years now. This one was a little bit different because this is home court for us. Our headquarters is here in Las Vegas.
Welcome to The Edge of Show, your gateway to the Web3 revolution. We explore the cutting edge of blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, ordinals, DeFi, gaming, and entertainment, plus how AI is reshaping our digital future. Join us as we bring you visionaries and disruptors pushing boundaries in this digital renaissance. This show is for the dreamers, disruptors, and doers that are pumped about where innovation meets culture. This is where the future begins.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Edge of Show. This is Joshua Krieger, your co-host, and I'm here live at BTC Vegas with Charlie Hu, the co-founder of Bitlayer. Always great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Josh. Great to be back.
And for those of you who aren't familiar, Bitlayer is one of our key partners, and we've been working with them for quite some time. They're really sort of leading the charge when it comes to the evolution of BitVM. It's probably an obvious answer, but what in particular brings you to this particular event, BTC Vegas, this year?
Yeah, first of all, I think this is probably by far the best Bitcoin conference I've ever attended. I've been to Bitcoin Miami 3 times. Last year we were in Bitcoin Nashville. This is probably the most efficient conference so far, business-wise. The reason I come here, obviously, it's the best Bitcoin gathering every year, right? With all the Bitcoin OGs, whales, now all the institutional folks, right? The people wearing suits who normally don't talk about Bitcoin. Now this time, there are all kinds of actions coming around, right? With all the agenda in terms of business collaboration, real synergy points and action items. And obviously, all these like retail, right? Like Bitcoin fans with interesting collectible. And obviously, all these technical teams, right? Some of them are working with us. And obviously, some of our competitors as well, they are attending. So we are here. Yeah.
And what's sort of the on-the-ground sentiment, the pulse from your perspective this year in terms of, the sort of DeFi type of products with Bitcoin? Obviously, there's been some sensitivity around the maxis in terms of some of these yield products. How have you seen that evolving this year in your conversations with folks?
Yeah, great question. I think Bitcoin DeFi definitely become one of the key words, right? Most discussed topic this week across all the institution, retail, builders. Everybody kind of want to figure out what is the Bitcoin holding they have, right? Like, they're not selling what kind of yield they can get. What are the risk assumptions behind them? This is across like all the VC fund, liquid funds, like asset management fund, right? ETF issuer, institution as well. I think the level of conversation is pretty high compared to last year. When last year, I remember in Nashville, it was more like, okay, Trump is coming, it's cool, he might become president, right? Let's see what's happening. And there was like a lot of Bitcoin L2 or like a lot of ordinals project. This year, I think a more like TradFi focus. You literally see every single Bitcoin ETF issuer here. Some having a booth, some just attending, right? And a lot of other institutions like major, what is company, custody solution provider like BitGo, Anchorage, all these guys are kind of here. And they trying to make a position themselves, right? In the Bitcoin circle. Like those guys are not kind of, I would consider like the TradFi, right? The people wearing suits. Then most of them actually only attend all the like Money 2020 or other fintech conference. They now become like probably the biggest crowd in the Bitcoin conference this year.
Yeah.
And obviously you have all the regulars like the miners, right? The mining pools, like the company like CleanSpark you mentioned, like the foundries, the marathons. They come off every year, right? That's their territory. That's their family, basically. Yeah.
So, I'm reminded of sort of some of the family office conferences I attended several years ago, where the theme was get 1 to 2% exposure to at least the industry. These are very conservative family offices that primarily invest in real estate. Now we're looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum as investments. And, we're now at a point where these new products are available where I guess the most conservative approach would be like take 1 to 2% of your exposure to digital assets and put that into yield products.
Yeah.
But there's other theories like 10% to 30% to 50%. What have you seen as sort of the comfort zone of the different types of players in the market where you're talking to them about what Bitlayer can do? Where's their comfort zone right now?
Good question. So we on the supply side, right? Our mission is to provide this infrastructure, bring this programmability and verification capability for Bitcoin users, right? For the DeFi.
Then you have apps built on it. But like, what do people want to do with those apps, and how much exposure do they?
It varies quite a bit, right? For the retail, what are we noticing? Observing, they want to do all kinds of interesting, degenerated kind of things. They want to get high yield, right? The APY percentage they're looking at is like at least like 10%, even like higher, right?
Wow.
So to looking around things, some of them came from the ordinal space, right? Though they have like high risk taking kind of profile, right? They try to flip around with the kind of ordinal NFTs around, right? Now they're trying to, okay, what do I can do with my Bitcoin to earn additional yield to front run to outperform the rest of the market, right? And then you have the risk averse kind of users, right? Like the financial allocators, the asset management people who actually reports to their LPs, right? And then they need to be very, very risk averse. They want to make sure their principles are protected. They don't looking for any yield above 10%. Anything above 10%, they feel it's overpromise. Is that some of them have like PTSD of Luna, right? Many years ago.
Yeah.
Of the 20%, which eventually crashed to zero. So people are comfortable with like 2 to 8%. 2 to 8 is actually 4x difference, right? So that's also, with different kind of people that, yeah.
And what about in terms of their percentage of their portfolio? Like if someone holds,
that also varies, right? Like I think you mentioned like some big company they want to put allocate 1% to tip the toe, and I see some companies already doing like even 30% of their position.
Oh wow!
As like asset management on yield strategies. Those are the people already kind of in the deep water, right? Like they holding Bitcoin. They actually now trying to use this DeFi strategy with Bitcoin.
And they may take that 30% and diversify it, as well. It's not like they're going to just choose one sort of.
100%. They actually, some of them just they invest even other funds, like being like a fund of fund. Some of them invest directly, like deploy capital into like liquidity pool as a DeFi protocol. So like it's all kinds of multi-strategy kind of way, right? They need to diversify. And I think some of them just want to have a taste about everything, and then eventually add up like quite a big percentage now. Yeah.
Cool. Well, you guys are always sort of moving forward at the speed of light. I talk to your team and they tell me sort of how innovative and sort of progressive you guys have been over the last few months. What are some of the updates on your end? Any major roadmap?
For the people who probably following us, we are one of the L2, right, on Bitcoin, focused on BVM since last year. We've been growing pretty fast. In terms of growth and traction, we made a 52 million transaction on chain already since last year, right? So that's that. The major interesting new things and also some innovative, interesting news was the BVM bridge. Since we launched, right, we are working with major ecosystem like Sui, Cardano. We made an announcement during East Denver with the event we co-host together, right? Like the Base, Arbitron, Stocknet, Plume. Some of those ecosystems have very different dynamics, right? They have different DeFi protocols. They provide different yields. They have different user base. So we want to bring our YBTC, our yield-bearing Bitcoin assets, from Bitcoin L1, right, through our bridge to those ecosystems. So we have all these announcements we made last couple of weeks. Especially Sui is a major one that they are pretty excited to work with us. They actually give us like foundation, foundation give us funding and also some grant support as well. They treat us like the Bitcoin partner to one of the fastest growing ecosystem this cycle, right? The most recent news, which we announced this Monday, is quite of like one of kind, first ever in the industry. We get 1/3 of Bitcoin hash rate, 3 major top Bitcoin mining pool to invest and also become our BVM operator. So it's Pool, and which is the second largest Bitcoin mining pool.
They're distributed, but where are they primarily based?
The management team is based in Singapore, but they have like American team, huge American team as well.
I mean, to do that much mining, you have to have a pretty broad exposure.
N-Pool has over 21% of the Bitcoin hash rate, right? Like, it's the second largest one. And, Spider Pool and F2 Pool, they're also pretty decent. Like, F2 Pool is number 5, Spider Pool is number 7. So these three together have over 33% Bitcoin hash rate.
Well, congrats on that. I mean, that's a remarkable achievement. I'm sure there's a long process there and a lot of trust building to get to that point. What was it about Bitlayer that they said were the differentiators that made them make this decision to partner?
To be honest, trust is very important, right? These people are not necessarily very technical. They're not like the top VC like the Polychain who do very detailed due diligence about tech. They're actually not the coders. It really comes down to the bridge we're launching. Where we're going to provide bridging fees as a new revenue stream for them, and obviously the trust of we been getting along with them in the last many years, even before Bitlayer, right? That's actually an important component for them to move along. N-Pool never announced any endorsement or support, not mention investment, to any like non-mining company ever in their history. So it's actually the first time ever for them. I was just sitting down with the CEO Andy yesterday. It took them quite some leap of faith to work with it. Obviously, the traction we had, some endorsement with the cap table, the big major investor we have, and also the technical setup we have, eventually led them to make the leap of faith, right? So I think it's a very good start. We want to really onboard more mining pools to join this, right? To maintain this Brilliant Bridge security, and also let them to handle the non-standard transaction. So this can be very important for the users who want to use our bridge, can have like a better experience, can make the bridging process faster. Because the impact of the whole thing is like when the big mining pool can handle the non-standard transaction, then we can front run the other transaction to become like always early in the mempool. So for the bridge users, it's much faster and actually maintained by the big hash rate. So it's high security. So that's kind of the huge deal. Why when people ask, well, what does it mean the mining pool is supporting this bridge, like as an operator? It's basically you try to improve to provide a better user experience, make it faster on the bridging, while we have a very high level of security
because of their liquidity.
Yeah, and also the hash rate, right? These are all like very important factors.
Yeah, both liquidity and hash rate. Well, that's really remarkable. I hope you take a moment to celebrate that milestone with your team and partners and all the stakeholders that have been along the way for your journey, because I think that's a really symbolic moment for your sort of progress from here. So that's great.
Yeah, we never had so many people recognize this like until like this week, because a lot of people know the minings and things, right? It's an interesting crowd. I'm trying to engage, and it took us some time, but I think it's an important crowd, right? Those people have been mining Bitcoin like diligently in the last 15 years, right? Like they don't really understand too much about ordinals, the whole NFTs, and now DeFi, right? They are kind of fresh, but guess what? They're sitting on the most big pile of Bitcoin, right? They've been mining Bitcoin the last 15 years. So those are the important clientele we need to engage.
Yeah. Well, very good. And then you have your token generation event coming up. Can you share any more details on that?
Well, obviously, we're working on it very actively, talking to all the exchanges, on the market makers, right? And make sure we have a successful launch at the right timing with the right strategy. That's the conversation. I made a lot of progress and action doing the token 24/9 to buy, because all the exchanges were there. This is a Bitcoin conference. There's no Binance and Coinbase here. That obviously, but Kraken is here. Robinhood is here, right?
OKX is here.
OKX is here, right? There's some exchanges, especially Robinhood. I was fairly impressed by the PR they did. It sounds like they're pretty aggressive now. They might have some interesting action trying to compete with Coinbase this cycle. So yeah, we definitely want to also connect with them to see what's the potential. It's a huge deal, right? Like, and any token that lists on Robinhood is like the major, well adopted retail, trading apps, right? So
it's nice to see that healthy competition.
Yeah, we need that, right? Like I'm not saying Coinbase is not doing a good job, but the recent data leaks is unfortunate, right? A lot of people somehow their private data get leaked out to some whatever weird call centers, right? They get some scam calls. So, but I think Coinbase, He's here to stay. They're gonna fix that very soon. They're still working with all the major institutions, right? We're also working with Coinbase Prime on the custody side. They're kind of still in the epicenter of the Bitcoin DeFi.
Thanks, Charlie, for your insights with the broader industry, what's happening with the Bitcoin ecosystem. Of course, congrats again on the big announcement with the mining pool, the end pool, and let's continue to stay in touch as you progress with your journey. We'll have more updates later for our audience. For those of you that haven't gone down the rabbit hole yet, I encourage you to learn more about Bitlayer. Where should they go?
You can follow us on Twitter, Bitlayer Labs. That's the best way to look at all the updated, news and information, and also alpha.
And you're a prolific poster on Twitter, X. What's your handle?
Charlie Who Sets. I share all the things as well. Sometimes the thoughts about the industry, what kind of things I encounter, what kind of interesting people I met as well.
So this is not just an account to follow. You're going to want to hit the notification button because Charlie always shares some fun updates, and I enjoy your posts. Thanks, Charlie, for coming on the show.
Hey, Josh.
Let's take a pause to shout out one of our favorite partners. For tech innovators facing legal challenges, Zuber Lawler is your go-to law firm. They focus on understanding your technology and business model before addressing legal requirements. Specializing in blockchain, AI, VR, AR, quantum computing, and more, Zuber Lawler offers expert guidance in capital raising, IP transactions, M&A, litigation, and compliance. Visit zuberlawler.com, that's ZUBERLAWLER.com, for cutting-edge legal solutions.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Edge of Show live at BTC Vegas. This is Josh Krieger, your co-host today. I'm here with Josh Lawler, one of the partners at Zuber Lawler, one of our partners on the Edge of Show at the Edge of Company. There's a lot of Edge talk here, and a lot of Joshes, but it's good to have you back on the show.
Yeah, pleasure as always.
So you run the whole conference circuit, and I know that because I see you everywhere, and that's how we became partners. So I'm curious what your perspective is on Bitcoin Vegas to share.
It's big. It's big. It looks like I would expect with the United States loosening up all of the regulations and changing the attitude and establishing the Bitcoin reserve, and it's reflected in the crowd.
Yeah, I think a more diverse crowd from what I've seen, more institutional folks, more non-traditional Bitcoin maxis here, other types of layer ones that are integrating with Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that's actually really a big thing, and certainly worth noting. So, Bitcoin itself as a use case, you can use it for transactions, which, forgive me, but slow and expensive. Doesn't really work so great with that. You can use it for store of value, which is great, but again, something a bit limited. But the trend towards anchoring other transactions into the Bitcoin blockchain is extremely interesting. Yeah. And that actually is, blows up the amount of practical use cases that are available.
Yeah. So how is that sort of, how does that sort of reflect in sort of the legal side of things? Is it easier for companies to work with Bitcoin than is other types of blockchain technology? And what are some of the nuances?
Sure. So yeah, it's funny. Bitcoin is very easy from a legal perspective, and it always has been. It has, kind of the advantage, if you will, that there's no issuer. There's never been anybody to go after for issuing Bitcoin. Like the SEC never went in. So it's been a commodity from day one, almost as if it was a natural resource. And legally, that makes it very easy. Of course, once you start layering other things into it, that can get more complicated. And, if you are doing some type of other derivative type of instrument that happens to be anchored into the Bitcoin chain, the fact that it's anchored into the Bitcoin chain is not going to change it from being a derivative instrument. You still have to deal with that from a legal perspective.
What about in terms of the IP side of the house? I mean, people are, in the ordinals community are sort of proponents of anything really, really important that you truly want immutability. You want to sort of etch on Bitcoin. What are the IP implications of putting something on Bitcoin?
All right. So IP law still does not fit the technology. There are all kinds of different interesting little spots that are kind of like IP gotchas where nobody really cares from a practical perspective, but it doesn't fit. So, everything you put onto IPFS, if it's properly pinned, there's going to be 10 copies of it. Copyright law doesn't really allow for that. People just brush that under the rug. Fine. Etching something on an ordinal, obviously it's immutable. You're not going to change it after that. If there's a violation, it can't really be taken down. But guess what? That's the same thing for child pornography, which is also on the Bitcoin blockchain and can't be taken down. So technically speaking, every validating node is holding child pornography, and that's illegal. We just kind of ignore that. And that's
really complicated.
Yeah.
I didn't think about all that, but yeah, it's like, you can't sort of like the whole idea with a lot of legal suits is trying to mitigate the damage and quantify the damage, but that gets a little bit complicated when you think about like permanent existence of that sort of etching forever. Like you may be using a Disney character and maybe Disney
Right.
doesn't appreciate.
totally.
You can't take it down.
Can't take it down. Can't take it down. I can't even hide it. I mean, the best you can do is have a cease and desist against pointing anybody to it, which in a lot of ways is similar because how else is somebody going to find the thing? But,
Can you like write over it?
I don't believe so.
No.
I mean, I don't go.
Use the house.
So really,
It's like
Either-
cover that up.
there's, God, I feel like I've heard about some type of, key pair obfuscating type of software that like you wouldn't be covering it up in the chain, but you would be covering up the address to the chain.
Like you got a tattoo and
I don't know. I got one of those
later. Change my mind.
Change my mind. It's a bad idea. Don't change your mind on the tattoo, folks. Think about that one on the way in.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with like getting married,
Hey.
business partner,
Close to there.
choosing a business partner, choosing what blockchain you build on.
Choosing what blockchain.
These are important decisions in life. So, in terms of sort of the regulatory climate, the Genius Act just passed. What were your thoughts on that particular legislation?
Oh, we're in for a good time. So it's not signed into law yet. I mean, to be clear, the Genius Act is not yet law.
It did pass.
It passed the Senate.
Okay.
I am honestly not sure what's going on with the House, whether it passed already or not, but it's definitely not been signed by Trump, so it's not there yet.
Okay.
But it will be. I mean, it's something close to what it currently is. So here's the thing about this. Anybody who has enough money to do it can now stick it into a vault and issue a stable coin. And then, make money taking the float the way that Tether is doing and everybody wants to do. So you're going to get branded stable coins, and that includes banks, sure, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, they will have Bank of America, they'll all have it, but there's really no reason why it doesn't include a lot of other stuff also. So I am predicting the Taylor Swift stable coin. I think she'd be idiotic not to do it. I'm predicting maybe the Batman stable coin, because I know those rights are with a particular family. They can make that happen. And any number of other similar things. And what's going to happen with that then is, one, you've got branded dollars, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. But
I'm thinking Bugs Bunny
well, yeah, you got to get Warner Brothers to get on top of that. I mean, that gets to be a little bit trickier than the stuff that's individually managed. But the thing about it is, once they do that, there's also no law that says that those stable coins can't pick up utility functions.
Yeah.
And there's also no reason to think they wouldn't behave somewhat like meme coins. So now you've got like a utility meme coin with $1 floor valuation because it's pegged to the dollar. But it can certainly be more than $1. So, it'll be an interesting world that we get into. And by the way, keep this in mind that the real audience on this is, the South American unbanked, hadn't had access to dollars, but wants it to get around the ridiculous inflation world. That is who you're talking about when you're saying, hey, do you want the Taylor Swift stablecoin or the JP Morgan Chase stablecoin?
Yeah.
Interesting times.
Yeah, really interesting times. And my sense is that the legislation coming up for September, folks aren't quite happy with how it's written right now. They want to see some pretty meaningful changes before that comes up. Are you following along with?
You mean the market structure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not quite there yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I am following along. I can tell you it wasn't even close to there. And I think
I was being kind.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. Being kind, I think the politicians took a swing with Fit 21 that they thought was a good swing. at the time in a different environment. And I think that there has been a general acknowledgement since then that it really was not fitting. It really did not, no pun intended, it really did not address a lot of the just technology facts of life. And there is a real attempt now to put something in place that does. And I'm actually pretty hopeful about it. I mean, we're not going to cure everything, but I think on the securities law front, the stuff that I'm hearing and talking about with people, is different than anything that we've had in the past because the technology is different, but it addresses, it covers the right policies.
What would be like the best possible outcome with this new legislation that you would want to see?
Okay. So my own opinion, not representing any of the organizations that I'm a member of or anything else, but I will say the things that I will bring up personally in those organizations. When you sell a utility coin, so this is a token that is not in any way, shape, or form a normal financial product, not in any way, shape, or form asset-backed. It doesn't represent a bar of gold. We're talking about a token that really serves some type of utilitarian purpose, may have its value increase based on supply and demand economics, the classical utility token, if you can have such a thing. When you sell that, the token is not a security. It never will be. It's software code. It's like a piece of paper. However, the act of selling it very well may be a security in the form of an investment contract under Howey, but it's a very special kind of security that we've never seen before in two ways. One of them is it's entirely inchoate. It doesn't actually exist. It's a little bit of a fiction. And the other one is because it's not transferable at all. The token is transferable. That's a commodity later. But the actual contract whereby I sell you this token based on my representations, you can't transfer that to anybody else. It's one of the big problems we've had with secondary sales and Howey and everything else was that thing. The reason why I like that perspective is because even though tokens are commodities, the CFTC is not a disclosure-based organization. It never has been. If you are selling a bushel of corn or a barrel of oil, there is no disclosure about that. There's no management's discussion and analysis on how am I going to make this oil more valuable. That doesn't happen. The CFTC is the wrong place to try to do that, but that is issuer disclosure. The SEC is the right place to try to do that, and we should, but we don't want it to get in the way of the later token sales on the secondary market. So the tokens, like they should be commodities. That is what I like to see.
So these are some fairly technical definitions, but important things for the future of the industry to catalyze true innovation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, always great to get your insights, Josh, and what's happening in the world of crypto, and definitely encourage folks that are in need of legal counsel to get to know the Zuber Lawler team. And Josh, if they want to contact you guys, talk about potentially engaging you, where should they start?
Smoke signals are great. No, I'm kidding. So my email is ideal, Lawler, J the letter J, LAWLER at zuberlawler.com. You can also catch me on X and Telegram and WhatsApp at JLawlerCal. So just J and then my last name and then CAL for California, since it's where I am. And, at a conference near you, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you heading next? What's the next big conference?
The next big conference is Permissionless in Brooklyn at the end of June, and I've got a vacation with my kids in between this and that, so I'm very happy about that.
All right. Well, our team will be there, and folks should definitely check out Permissionless. Edge will also be at ECC, which should be a really cool event in Cairns this year. I'm excited about that. And thank you so much for hanging out.
Yep. Pleasure, Josh.
Pleasure.
Hey listeners, are you ready to amplify your voice in a digital world? Introducing .podcast domains, your gateway to the future of online identity. Whether you're a creator, a company, or just someone with big ideas, .podcast is for you. Own your unique digital identity, connect securely, and explore hundreds of apps with no renewal fees. Don't wait for someone else to claim your name. Secure your .podcast domain today and be part of the next generation of content creation. Visit get.unstoppabledomains.com/podcast to get started. Again, that's get.unstoppabledomains.com/podcast. Your voice, your rules, your identity.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Edge of Show live at BTC Vegas. I'm here with Tyler Monnig, the CTO of CleanSpark, and you guys have a huge presence on the floor here. A really big booth, but also you're doing some rock climbing. I guess that it behooves me to ask, like, why did you guys decide to go big this year in Vegas, and how does that fit into the broader strategic vision?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been a pretty big sponsor of the Bitcoin conference for a number of years now. This one was a little bit different because this is home court for us. Our headquarters is here in Las Vegas. We have mines in Georgia, Mississippi, and all across the country, but our headquarters is here. So we really wanted to double down, have the booth presence, do a much larger sponsor, really get the name out there, just because it's, a mile away from our HQ.
Cool, and I see people like climbing up on those rocks like all day. So it seems like people are really enjoying that experience.
Yeah, to be honest, I was a little skeptical of the rock wall when it was brought up internally, but I got to give you credit, man. It's been busy all day.
That's cool. So you joined the company about 2 years ago. Maybe tell us a little bit about your background or what made you decide to sort of get involved with CleanSpark.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a Bitcoiner since 2015, coming out of college. Started my first mining company right after that, which actually turned into an immersion cooling company. So it took a little bit of a turn. Went away from Bitcoin into the regular data center space for about 2 or 3 years. Did a lot more, mechanical engineering than anything else on designing new cooling systems. And I got to a point one day where I realized that I really liked mining Bitcoin. I had CleanSpark as a customer. They were buying my tanks. We had been doing some hosting. I got to know Scott and Zach and Gary and some of the team. And it really just all came together. They were leaving the energy business to go mining. I wanted to leave what I was doing to get back into mining. They needed a miner. I needed a home. So it just married together really well. And it was a great team to join. And here we are 44 exahash later. And we're the world's largest miner, which is a pretty big feat.
Yeah, congrats on that. So it feels like from like 60,000 feet, the mining industry requires a lot of agility in perpetual innovation. How does that sort of impact your job as CTO relative to like being CTO of another type of tech company? Like what are the sort of things that keep you up at night, and how do you sort of facilitate that agility?
All right, there's a bunch of questions there. We'll unpack them one by one. Yeah. The agility thing, absolutely, right? We're always racing the most efficient market in the world, which is the Bitcoin mining algorithm, right? Every 2 weeks, the difficulty is being impacted either up or down, depending on hash rate, right? So no, you've got to move extremely quick. Me and my CEO, we talk about all the time the value of hashing now versus even in 90 days, right? There's just so much more Bitcoin that can be acquired now. And then you factor in the halvings, right? And that plays another part where we're always trying to plan not only a few months ahead, but also 4 years ahead to try and make sure that those cycles are lining up where the algorithm's lining up. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to come back to this industry, man. When you look at a lot of other fields, they move a lot slower. And they're also a lot more developed, you know what I mean? And in Bitcoin mining, as a CTO, you can have a huge impact not only on your own company, but you can have an impact all across the industry on form factors or the voltage of the miners, right? Like we don't have an OCP working group that the data center industry has. We don't have a lot of
OCP, break that down.
Open Compute Project, right? Over the last 10 years, it was actually started by Mark Zuckerberg in the Meta group, basically to say, hey, we're all building these data centers. How do we build them more efficiently? How do we build them cleaner, better? All those types of things, right? So when you walk into a typical data center now, you have the U form factor, right? It's completely adopted. They all run on the same voltage. They all do the same things, right? We don't have any of that in Bitcoin mining. It's the Wild West out here. And that's part of the reason why I like it. It's constantly evolving super fast. Every year or two, there's new machines released, and I've got to develop firmware, figure out the environmentals that they like, all these different types of things. That just keeps me coming back for more.
So that sounds exciting. How do you keep that edge? Like, is it about proprietary IP? Is it about just like how you manage your sprints with your team? Like, how do you sort of stay one step ahead in that type of environment?
Yeah, we break it down into like two really big buckets, right? Like obviously there's the machine bucket, right? And that's more of a capital intensive type situation of, hey, can I go get the most efficient machine from the best provider at that given time, right? So that's one thing that we're looking at. How do we bring in the capital at the right time? How do we buy that machine at the right time to make sure
cash flow management, capital management is really important in mining, yeah.
Absolutely, right? And that plays into our whole technology roadmap, right? So we're looking at the machine, and then we're looking at the next layer deep is like the firmware on the device, right? So for the outside world, whether we're running Windows or Linux, right? There's these little bits and pieces, right? So we'll look at it on the firmware perspective. Okay, we have a really good box now. Now I'm going to make sure the firmware is going to extract everything I can out of that box. And when we get done with that, and we get to a set point, we go, great, this is how we want to operate this box, whether it's from Bitmain or Whatsmine or Canaan, whatever the provider is. We now have these parameters that say, this is where the box is going to be very, very happy, right? And then we go downstream of that to our facility and say, okay, now that we have all these parameters, we need to make sure that all 15,000 or 45,000 rigs that are in this building all get these parameters, right? They have the right amount of intake or the right amount of flow, whether we're using immersion or air. And then we go all the way back up to make sure that not only the device is running well, but the facility is supporting that device and they're all working in harmony together to really drive out those efficiencies. So it's like a stack, almost like marginal gains type approach, rather than you're going to go out and get 25% somewhere, right? We're going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4 from 10 different places and put it together to get that competitive advantage.
Right on. As the mining difficulty increases, how sensitive is your business to the price of Bitcoin, and to what extent are you sort of diversifying into AI compute and thinking about other ways to sort of use these rigs, or are you just like boldly confident in the future of Bitcoin mining?
Absolutely. I mean, so we're at the same competitive disadvantage or advantage of everybody else, right, on the difficulty and the increasing difficulty of mining that Bitcoin, right? What do we do to stay ahead? Obviously, buy the rigs, do the firmware. We stack all those things downstream. But the big one for us is we are the last pure play Bitcoin miner. You can go over to Riot, Marathon, all these other companies. They all have these HPC endeavors, right? For us, that's nice. 80% of our competition just left the game. Is how I like to look at it.
All right, you're all in.
Yeah, we're all in, right? And when you look at it, it's almost like the hash rate growth is a good analogy I heard from a friend is like a snake ate a cow, right? Like this huge hash rate contracts from last year are working through the system, but those contracts aren't re-happening this year, right? Because all of these companies have stepped out. So we've had this astronomical rise in difficulty, which freaked everybody out. But on the backside, they forget that those contracts are disappearing and curving on the other end. And we think it's going to be a really nice place to be. The last person growing, the biggest company in the world, hopefully over the next couple months, while everybody else is taking their eye off the ball. If Bitcoin price works for us, then we're obviously going to be way out in the lead, right? And if it doesn't work for us, then maybe people say, oh, you should have done HPC. But for right now, we think it's a really strong path to double down on mining, keep our, laser focus on that, because that's what we're really good at. And if we can extract all the value out of that, I think we'll be in a really good place.
Cool. So, with the profits and revenue you're generating from mining, are you looking at other ways to diversify within the mining sector or support the ecosystem? Are you sort of dabbling with Bitcoin lending or any of these other sort of auxiliary services, or is it just all about mining?
Yeah, I'll cover this at a high level, but somebody you should definitely bring on your podcast is one of our team members, Rory. He's actually in charge of our digital asset management. So we're actually spinning up a whole entire department within CleanSpark underneath our finance department that is going to be generating yield out of our Bitcoin. We have over $1.2 billion in Bitcoin currently, and we definitely want to put that to use in very creative ways.
Yeah, but also like protect your keys.
Absolutely.
Right? How do you balance that?
Oh, I don't want to get into the weeds on that because Rory would give you a much better explanation, but that's definitely something the company's looking at and we'll be doing here in the future. Our CFO has been giving little inklings about it in podcasts and to the market as we've been developing that system in the background.
I mean, like Babylon, I think is achieving like a 7% yield. You think about the impact on sort of your size of Bitcoin of even getting like a 5% yield. It would be monumental for your company, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we want to take a crawl, walk, run approach where we're going to look to even just get 1 to 2% because it's still astronomical, right? Keep the risk as low as we can because you never can trust those outparted sources as much as you want to, right? So we're going to keep the risk very low. And they've developed a really intricate strategy in order to make that happen. So hopefully you get Rory on the show. He can walk you through that start to finish. I think you'd find that really interesting.
Cool. At this point, like in terms of our audience, which has brought both industry leaders, consumers, like how can people get involved in CleanSpark? Where should they go to learn more?
We have a YouTube channel that has a lot of great documentation. Our website is another good resource for them. And obviously, looking at our stock and things like that are, the three kind of buckets they can either get involved or learn about CleanSpark.
CleanSpark.com.
CleanSpark.com, and our ticker is CLSK.
All right, and are you on X or any of the social channels?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm on X and Telegram. If anybody wants to talk mining, send me a DM at Taylor Monnig. I'm happy to chat with you and go through all that kind of stuff.
All right, and just for our listeners, spell your X handle.
Oh yeah, it's TAYLOR Monnig, which is MONNIG _.
All right, this was so fascinating. I learned a lot about mining. It's clear your passion shines through. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great one.
We've reached the outer limit at the Edge of Show for today. Thanks for exploring with us. We have room for more adventurers on our starship, so invite your friends and cool strangers to join our journey. If you're among the hundreds of thousands following us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or watching us on Myco or YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, rate us, and make an awesome comment too. And don't forget to pass this episode along to a friend or two who would benefit from it. Doubling back to again, recommend checking out myco.io, where you can watch The Edge of Show and earn for your time and attention. That's myco.io. Don't forget to visit theedgeofshow.com. The is part of the domain name, where you can learn more about collaborating with us and also subscribe to the Edge of Weekly newsletter for the latest Web3 news, events, and show drops. In addition, connect with us on all major social platforms by searching for The Edge of Show. Join the exciting conversations happening online. Lastly, be sure to tune in next time for more great Web3 and AI content. Until then, keep pushing the boundaries. Thanks again for hanging out with us today. The views and opinions expressed on The Edge of Show reflect solely those views and opinions of the show host and its guests. Please make sure to do your own research. Our show is not financial advice. You understand that you are using any and all information on or through this podcast at your own risk. Whenever making financial decisions, we recommend doing your own research and talking to your accountant for financial advice. From time to time, we may feature sponsored content on the show for which we receive value, and we may share links for which we receive a commission if you make a purchase through one of these links. Refer to our website, www.edgeofnft.com, for our full disclaimer, terms and conditions, and privacy policy.